There's a snake living within 50 feet of your back door right now, and you probably built it a home without even knowing. Not because you're careless, not because your property is dirty, but because every single thing that snake needs to survive is sitting somewhere in your yard, right now, in this exact moment, and it's been sitting there for months. By the time most farmers realize they have a venomous snake problem, it's already too late. Because that snake didn't just wander through, it moved in. And in the next 25 minutes, I'm going to show you exactly why that happens, how to spot it before it happens to you, and how to take away everything that snake wants so it never comes back. Stick around, because near the end, I'm going to walk you through the one mistake that sends more people to the emergency room than the snake bite itself. If this is your first time here, hit subscribe now, because we're about to get into stuff most extension offices won't even tell you, and you don't want to miss what's coming in this channel. Here's the truth nobody wants to say out loud. A snake showing up on your land isn't bad luck. It's not a curse, it's not random, and it's not just that time of year. It's a decision that snake made because your property answered yes to one of three questions. Is there food here? Is there water here? Is there a safe place to hide, stay warm, stay cool, and not get eaten? The second the answer is yes to even one of those, your yard becomes worth the risk. And here's the part that should worry you. Most properties answer yes to all three without the owner ever noticing. Let's start with food, because this is the big one, and it's the one almost nobody connects to snakes until it's too late. Food, for a venomous snake, almost always means rodents. Mice and rats. And where do mice and rats set up shop? Sheds, garages, compost piles, cluttered corners you haven't touched since last fall. If you've got rodents settling in on your property, copperheads and rattlesnakes are going to find them. These snakes hunt by scent and by heat, which means a steady rodent population isn't just a nuisance to them, it's a pantry that never runs empty. And here's the detail that changes everything. Copperheads don't just pass through a good hunting ground, they stay. Research has shown copperheads will anchor themselves to one productive area for an entire season if the food keeps coming. That means a single mouse nest tucked near your foundation or your woodpile isn't a one-time encounter waiting to happen. It's a long-term tenant you didn't agree to. Now here's your first gut check. Water. In dry regions, during a hot summer, water is just as strong a pull as food. Bird baths, pet bowls left outside overnight, clogged gutters, low spots in the yard that hold rainwater, a leaking hose bib you've been meaning to fix for 2 months. Every one of those is a standing invitation. And this fix is almost embarrassingly simple. You don't need to touch a single plant, spray a single chemical, or spend a single dollar. You just need to stop leaving water sitting out. That's it. That's the whole fix. But almost nobody does it because nobody thinks about a bird bath as snake bait. Now you will. And then there's shelter, and this is where most farms go wrong without ever realizing it. Snakes are cold-blooded. Survival, for them, is a constant balancing act between staying warm enough and not overheating, all while staying hidden from anything that wants to eat them. Wood piles, brush piles, tall grass, leaf litter, stacked debris behind the barn you haven't cleared since planting season, all of it does the exact same job for a snake. Shade, humidity, insulation, and cover, all in one place. A woodpile stacked straight on the ground creates a cool, damp, shaded pocket underneath that's close to perfect, not just for the snake, but for the rodents it's hunting. You're not just housing a snake. You're running a 2-for-1 rodent and snake motel, and you didn't even know you had a business. But here's the one most people completely overlook. Grass height. Grass taller than 3 or 4 inches along your walkways, your fence lines, your garden edges, gives a snake enough cover to move within a few feet of you in broad daylight, and you would never know it was there. Think about that for a second. You could be 3 feet from a copperhead on your normal path to the barn, and the only thing standing between you and a bite is grass height. That's not a scare tactic. That's biology. So before we get into how to fix all of this, And we are going to fix all of this. You need to know exactly what you're dealing with, because treating every snake the same way is a mistake that gets people hurt. Start with what actually lives in your region. Your state wildlife agency and local herpetology programs publish range maps that narrow the list down fast. Instead of worrying about every venomous species in North America, you're usually worried about 2 or 3 at most. Across most of the eastern and central United States, the one you're most likely to run into is the copperhead. Coppery tan body, darker hourglass bands that pinch in at the spine and widen out at the sides. That pattern isn't decoration. It's camouflage built specifically to disappear into dry leaves and mulch. Which means the copperhead you're worried about might already be sitting 6 feet from your porch steps right now, and you'd walk right past it. Then you've got timber rattlesnakes and their relatives, easy to identify by the segmented rattle, the wide triangular head, and heavy blotched patterns depending on your region. But here's the myth that gets people bit. Don't count on hearing that rattle. At close range, a lot of rattlesnakes won't rattle at all. If you're relying on sound as your early warning system, you're already behind. Cottonmouths, also called water moccasins, stick close to ponds, creeks, and drainage ditches, and they get mistaken for harmless water snakes constantly. Here's the tell. A cottonmouth swims with a good part of its body riding above the water at an angle. A regular water snake swims low, mostly submerged. Learn that difference, because guessing wrong near a pond is not the kind of mistake you get to make twice. And coral snakes, less common in yards, but present through parts of the southeast and southwest. Bands of red, yellow, and black wrapping the entire body. You've probably heard the old rhyme about red touching yellow being dangerous. That rhyme only applies to snakes in North America. Nowhere else. Assume it applies everywhere, and you could be dead wrong. Literally, if you ever travel somewhere with look-alike species. None of this is about becoming a snake expert who can identify a species in a split second of panic, because in that split second, you won't. It's about knowing in advance what to expect on your land, so every decision you make about clearing brush, stacking wood, or mowing grass is built around the real threat, not a guess. And that brings us to the part you've been waiting for. Because now that you know what's drawing them in, it's time to take it all away. Rodents first, because they're the biggest single draw for copperheads and rattlesnakes on any property. Cut off the rodent food supply, and in a lot of cases, you cut off the snake problem before it starts. That means clearing out anything that gives mice a place to nest. Cardboard piles, stacked lumber, old furniture, cluttered storage in the shed. Swap cardboard boxes for sealed plastic totes. Keep your shed floor clear. Nothing stacked flush against the walls. Here's one almost nobody thinks about: bird feeders. Spilled seed on the ground is a dinner bell for mice every single night, and mice draw snakes right behind them. Use a feeder with a catch tray, sweep up the fallen seed daily, or just move the feeder farther from the house. Small change, big difference. Compost piles need the same attention. An open pile of food scraps is an open invitation to every rodent in the area. Keep compost in an enclosed bin and skip the meat, dairy, and oily scraps that turn a compost pile into a scavenger buffet. Now, firewood. And this one's important because it's one of the most common snake shelters found within spitting distance of a house, and most people never move it once it's stacked. Firewood sitting on the ground stays damp at the base practically year-round. Get it up on a raised rack at least 12 inches off the ground and move the whole stack at least 20 feet from the house instead of leaning it against the porch or the foundation. That one move does 2 things at once. It kills the dark, humid gap snakes love, and it exposes rodent droppings and chew marks that were invisible before, so you actually know if you've got a problem brewing. Grass again, because it's worth repeating. Keep it mowed low and consistent, especially within 10 feet of the house, the sheds, and any path you walk regularly. You don't need the whole property manicured. You need a tight, low perimeter around the areas where you and your family actually move, because that removes the exact cover a snake needs to approach without being seen. Pay close attention to the transition strips, where your lawn meets the fence line, the garden bed, or the tree line. That's the staging ground. That's where a snake pauses and decides whether it's worth pushing further into your yard. Keep that edge trimmed tight, and you remove the decision point entirely. Rock piles and decorative stone borders. Cool, shaded, exactly what a snake wants during the heat of the day. If you've got loose stacked rock near your foundation or garden bed, either replace it with tightly packed or mortared stone that leaves no crawl space, or move it away from doors, porches, and walking paths. You might not be able to eliminate it, but distance alone cuts your odds of a surprise encounter dramatically. And general debris, leaf litter, scrap lumber, old tarps, abandoned equipment, all of it creates the same shaded microhabitat snakes and rodents both love. One afternoon of clearing solves two problems at once. Even your mulch matters. Keep it under 3 or 4 inches deep, rake it occasionally to check for tunnels, and never let it touch the siding or foundation. Every single one of these steps breaks one link in the same chain. No rodents, no food source, no wood piles, no tall grass, no rock cover, no shelter. Take away food, water, and shelter, and you've made your property boring to a snake, and boring is exactly what you want. Now here's where I need to stop you, because what I'm about to tell you might undo everything you think you know about snake repellents. And some of what's out there isn't just useless, it's dangerous. Marigolds, wormwood, lemongrass, the classic border plants everybody's grandfather swore by. The theory sounds reasonable. Snakes navigate by scent, so strong-smelling plants should overwhelm them and push them away. Here's the problem. No controlled study has ever confirmed that these plants reliably repel venomous snakes. Snakes have been observed moving straight through and around these plantings without so much as a pause. Now they're not worthless. They keep certain insects away, and a dense planting can slow a snake down physically. But if you're relying on marigolds as your snake defense, you're relying on folklore, not fact. Treat it as a minor layer, never your main line of defense. Sulfur powder, another old rural standby, sprinkled in a ring around the house or barn because snakes hate the smell. Farmers have sworn by this for generations, and you can still buy it in stores marketed for exactly this purpose. Wildlife researchers have tested it directly. Snakes cross sulfur barriers in observed conditions with zero change in behavior. And on top of that, it washes away in the rain, meaning you're reapplying a method that never worked in the first place. Clove oil and cinnamon oil sprays are the newer version of the same myth, marketed as natural, chemical-free repellents. These oils do contain a compound that can irritate a reptile's skin on direct contact. That's true. But direct contact is the key phrase the marketing leaves out. Spray it on open ground and it loses its punch within days out in the sun and rain. There's no solid field evidence that spraying your yard keeps snakes off the property. At best, a mild supplement, never a standalone plan. And now the one that should genuinely concern you. Mothballs. This is the most persistent and the most dangerous myth in snake control, and I need you to hear this clearly. Mothballs are made from naphthalene, a chemical designed to kill moth larvae through fumes, not to repel reptiles. Snakes have limited sensitivity to airborne fumes at ground level, and field observations show them crawling directly over scattered mothballs without any reaction at all. So not only do they not work, using them this way is actually illegal. The EPA classifies mothballs as a pesticide, and using them outside their labeled purpose violates federal law under the Federal Insecticide, Fungicide, and Rodenticide Act. That's not a technicality you can shrug off. Here's why it matters even more than the legal side. Naphthalene is toxic to humans, pets, and wildlife. Dogs and cats are drawn to the smell and will eat mothballs, leading to vomiting, seizures, organ damage, and, in serious cases, death. Kids face the exact same risk. Ingested naphthalene destroys red blood cells and can trigger a dangerous condition called hemolytic anemia within hours. And scattering mothballs outdoors contaminates your soil and groundwater over time because these chemicals don't break down quickly. So you end up with a property that's carrying real risk to your kids, your pets, and your land for a method that never even worked on the snake in the first place. If you've already got mothballs scattered around your place, don't just toss them in the trash or leave them in the dirt. Collect them and take them to a household hazardous waste program. Most municipalities run these specifically for chemicals, batteries, and pesticides like this. So if scent-based tricks don't work, what actually does? Physical exclusion. Because it doesn't rely on a snake's mood, its sense of smell, or whether it happened to read the folklore. It relies on a gap being too small to fit through a period. Start underground, because that's the part most people forget entirely. Bury hardware cloth or galvanized mesh at least 6 inches deep, angled outward at the bottom in an L shape. A snake that tries to dig under gets redirected away instead of finding a path underneath. Above ground, your fence needs to stand at least 24 to 36 inches tall, with 0 gaps at the base. And check it after every heavy rain, because runoff carves little channels under fence lines that can open a new entry point within a single season without you ever seeing it happen. Mesh size is where a lot of people get it wrong. 1/4-inch hardware cloth blocks even small juvenile snakes. Anything bigger than 1/2 an inch, and you're letting young copperheads and small rat snakes stroll right through. Always build for the smallest snake in your region, not the biggest, because juveniles cause just as many bites as adults do. Secure the mesh with fasteners spaced no more than 6 inches apart. Overlap your seams by at least 2 inches and reinforce every corner. Loose seams and weak corners are exactly where snakes exploit a fence line. Now shift to the house itself, because most indoor snake encounters start with a gap smaller than a pencil. Walk your entire foundation and mark every crack and utility penetration wider than a 1/4 inch. That's your danger threshold. Foundation vents are a classic weak point, often left uncovered or covered with mesh too wide to stop anything small. Swap in 1/4-inch hardware cloth, fasten tight on all 4 sides. Crawl space openings need the same treatment. Dark, humid, low to the ground, exactly what draws both snakes and the rodents they're hunting. Seal access doors with weather stripping and cover the vents with that same fine mesh. Check where pipes, wires, and cables run into the house, because those penetrations are almost never sealed tight during construction. Pack the gaps with steel wool. It resists chewing far better than foam alone. Then seal over it with expanding foam or mortar. And don't skip your garage door. A worn-down rubber seal, especially one that's curled up at the corners, leaves a gap wide enough for a small snake to slip straight through. Replace it before it becomes a problem, not after. Last piece, the transition zone between your yard and your house. A gravel border around the perimeter, using angular gravel rather than smooth river rock, creates a surface a snake is genuinely reluctant to cross because sharp edges are hard on its belly scales. A strip at least 12 to 18 inches wide, running the full perimeter, also improves your drainage while it's at it. Keep that strip clear of leaf litter, mulch, and creeping grass, because organic debris on top of gravel brings right back the exact moisture and cover you just removed. Rake it clean seasonally. Combine it with your buried fence line, because gravel alone won't stop a determined digger, and fencing alone leaves your foundation still cluttered and inviting. Together they close the gaps a single method always leaves open. Here's the part almost nobody wants to hear. None of this is a one-time job. It's a routine. Grass grows back. Mulch shifts. New gaps open around your foundation every single season, whether you touch anything or not. So build the habit. Walk your perimeter every spring. Once temperatures climb past 60 degrees, that's when snakes come out of brumation and start actively hunting. Walk it again in early fall before they go looking for winter shelter. Check your sheds, decks, and garden beds first, because those dark, temperature-stable gaps are exactly what both snakes and rodents favor. Look for burrow entrances, shed skins, or droppings. Any one of those is a sign of recent activity you need to deal with immediately, not next week. Lift deck boards and shed floors if you can, and check the soil underneath for tunnels. Here's something most people never realize. Snakes usually don't dig their own burrows. They move into one's rodents already dug. So, a burrow under your deck is a warning sign no matter what made it. In the garden, check under squash leaves, around your compost bins, along the base of raised beds. Fallen produce and dropped seed pull in rodents, and rodents pull in snakes right behind them. Harvest what's ripe promptly and keep that compost enclosed. Some farmers bring in help. Guinea fowl forage constantly and will actually attack and kill small to medium snakes on sight, while sounding the alarm loud and clear on the bigger ones. Cats reduce your rodent numbers, though they carry their own bite risk if they corner something venomous. Pigs and certain chicken breeds will kill and eat a snake given the chance to. None of them should be your only line of defense, but stacked on top of everything else, they add real value. Now, even with every fence, every gravel strip, every habit locked in, you prepare for the possibility of a bite anyway. Because that's what responsible land management looks like. Keep a proper snake bite kit in the house, the barn, and any vehicle you use regularly. A pressure immobilization bandage, a permanent marker to track swelling on the skin over time, a phone with the nearest hospital that stocks anti-venom already saved, a printed card listing the venomous species native to your region. And here's the part that could genuinely save a life. Do not pack a suction device, a tourniquet, or a knife into that kit. These used to be standard advice. They're not anymore. They're now known to make things worse, concentrating venom, damaging tissue, or cutting off circulation entirely when the person needs blood flow, not less of it. If a bite happens, keep the person calm and still. Remove rings or tight clothing near the site before swelling sets in. Keep the limb at or slightly below heart level and get to a hospital immediately. No ice, no trying to suck out venom, no alcohol to calm the shock. Every one of those old remedies makes the outcome worse, not better. And if you actually spot a venomous snake on your property, resist the urge to kill it or grab it yourself. Here's a fact that should stop you cold. Most bites happen during an attempted capture or removal, not from a snake simply passing through. If it's out in the open and moving away from the house, leave it alone and just watch from a distance. A lot of these situations resolve themselves within minutes as the snake keeps moving toward better cover. But if it's holed up somewhere close to daily foot traffic, a doorway, a garage, a kid's play area, call a licensed wildlife control operator or your local animal control instead of handling it yourself. A lot of regions also have volunteer snake relocation networks through local herpetological societies, often free, often fast to respond. Keep kids and pets inside until it's dealt with and mark the spot so you can check it again on your next scheduled walk. At the end of the day, protecting your property was never about one clever trick or one product off a shelf. It's about removing what draws them in, blocking how they get close, and staying on top of it season after season, year after year. Clear the ground, build the barrier, bring in the predators that actually help, keep a real first aid response ready just in case. Do all of that, and your land stops being a home for venomous snakes and goes back to being exactly what it should be, a safe place for you and your family to live and work. If this helped you look at your own land differently, hit subscribe, drop a comment telling me what you're dealing with on your property, and share this with the next farmer down the road who needs to hear it. Because the more of us who know this, the fewer close calls any of us have to deal with. I'll see you in the next one.